During the latter part of the 1960s, when the band was experimenting with new styles and approaches, the Beatles' recording sessions were not continually amicable. Wearied from years of touring and the Bealtemania that accompanied their concerts, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison decided to spend more time in the studio and resigned from touring in 1966. Its groundbreaking 1967 album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and its 1967 follow-up, The White Album, were both influenced by this, and they helped to redefine popular music. Artistic disagreements and John's subsequent distaste for Sgt. Pepper made for tumultuous sessions for The White Album, so be prepared for an arduous process. They started working on Get Back after finishing The White Album. Begun in January 1969, the recordings were intended to bring the Beatles full circle and herald their comeback to performing live. That didn't work out, though, and the Get Back recordings became April 1970's Let It Be, the album that officially ended the Beatles' run as a group. Along with the recording and publication of Abbey Road, John Lennon informed his bandmates that he wanted a divorce from the group, and the sessions for what would become Let It Be began around this time. Paul's solo career didn't begin in 1970, but by then, the Beatles had already broken up. Paul, Ringo, and George had to complete the record Let It Be without John. John's departure from the band was announced privately. Therefore, the four of them had a rough time. George, irritated with his part in the band, briefly left during the Get Back sessions. Juxtaposed with John's description of it, one song on the CD seems to capture the spirit of that time. John and Paul had their differences in the final years of the Beatles. John was not hesitant to criticize and contradict Paul, whether it was his claim to have written Eleanor Rigby, when in fact it was Paul's work, or his distaste for Paul's other songs, like as Let It Be, Obla Di, Obla Da, and the concluding medley to Abbey Road. Across the Universe was the only track on the album Let It Be that truly captured the troubling connection between. John composed the song and has stated that the memorable line, "Words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup," originated from his frustration with his first wife, Cynthia. Attempts to record the song were made by the band in February 1968 during the recording of a non-album single. After hearing Across the Universe, John was dissatisfied with it, so Paul composed and performed Lady Madonna, and the Beatles released it with The Inner Light as the B-side. Originally published in December 1969 on the charity album No One's Gonna Change Our World, the song sat on the shelf for over a year before finally seeing its second release.